Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division 2 video today by me, Vulcan. In this one I have for you a 3 versus 3 on Lipen, and I'm going to be playing with the new Czechoslovak Battlegroup with the balanced deployment type. As you can see, I'm going to be joined by some of the usual suspects. On my team I have OAC and Spicy Rub, who are also going to be playing as the Czechoslovaks, and we are up against Grimguy, Taki and C.I.A.B.G as we get this game underway, who are going to be playing with Festung Dunkirken. So we have the Nemesis DLC matchup in a 3v3, which is really cool. We got some Humber LRCs going to be leading the charge for me here. You can see the MG42 also getting up into a position to cover down the main road against enemy infantry. I've got a couple of leaders moving up in their jeeps and a couple of Panzerschrecks as well. A bunch of converted RAF going to be following up with the Cromwell 5s. I've also got a Flak that's actually coming up with the Morris C8 of all things. Very interesting little combination of transports and unit there. The Czechoslovaks, of course, getting access to quite a lot of German equipment that has been captured. So Flak-Willings, 88s, of course Panzerschrecks are going to be one of those as well. Unfortunately, my Humber gets annihilated by the C.I.A.B.G Panther. Festung Dunkirken does get access to C.I.A.B Panthers, so it forces me to unload my converted RAF, and they're going to be trying to find cover as soon as possible. My Panzerschreck is retreating after sniping one of his Festung's Grenadier. And on the right hand side, this Humber LRC also going to go down due to his Luftwaffe Flakkampftruppen, which do have a Panzerschreck. There are a lot of Panzerschrecks up against us in this one, so I've got to be super careful with my Cromwells. And I'm going to be trying to use my Cromwells at relatively close range here to engage his infantry and provide fire support. Great thing about these Cromwells is I've got them coming in at high veterancy, so 2 vet with 2 base of machine guns and the HE, really good at putting down fire onto these infantry. But the Panzer IV obviously going to be a tough matchup for my Cromwell, but I'm going to be able to find a penetration and back out of line of sight in time, which was very lucky. I almost had that killed. Meanwhile, on the right hand side, MG42, another captured German weapon, going to be used by the Czechoslovaks. I really like the uniforms on the Czechoslovak units, they look really cool. All of the infantry in this is really interesting. Also, we now have the Czechoslovak voice lines, so you might hear those throughout, which is great. This is something that we didn't have back when I was showing off the preview, although I don't think I got around to showing off any gameplay, so maybe you guys didn't notice, but if you were here on my streams, then you may have. But we've got some Geniste moving through here with their Brens. They got Lee Enfields, the Thompsons, and then the Lifeboy flamethrower. So they're my close range infantry, and they're going to be trying to take up the forest early on. Close range infantry is something that we don't really have in great supply throughout this game, but I do have this card in Phase 8 to help me out on the right side there. Meanwhile, on the left, converted RAF now engaging the Pioneers. I actually really like these disheartened units, like the fact they have a machine gun, the Vickers K. They're pretty decent at taking ranged engagements. A heavy cover to heavy cover, of course, it's not going to be ideal, especially when your opponents do have MG34s that they can use. So this converted RAF having a hard time. Got one of my Recon Cromwells coming up. Recon Cromwells are even better than normal Cromwells in this scenario because they can spot their own targets in the close range engagements. They might not spot a unit before they get in range of a Panzerschreck, but they will probably spot a unit before they get in range of, say, like an AT grenade or even a Panzerfaust. So that is the benefit of using the Recon Cromwells in this scenario. But something like the Luftwaffe Flakkampftruppen can probably still get its Panzerschreck on target. Anyway, going to be reinforcing with more Cromwells. Cromwells are something that's definitely in abundance in this battle group. We have the Cromwell 6 here, which does come with the 95mm HE gun, great for 2,000 meter range HE fire support. And we have another normal Cromwell here with its 90mm of penetration that's going to be getting nice and close up. So anytime I'm seeing infantry engagements that I can join in with the Cromwells, we're moving the Cromwells forwards to get them on target. Here I'm going to be making a little cheeky play. can see I've got my leader, and what I'm going to do is use the rules of engagement to turn off their auto cover. And by doing that, they won't automatically get back in the building, and they're just going to sit behind it, which will block line of sight against all of these units here, whilst maintaining my good position with the leader. Great tip, by the way, for if you want to try and keep things alive closer to the front line. You can utilize line of sight like this, but enemy artillery is coming in, so that is obviously going to make things difficult, and not being in cover whilst artillery is coming in will of course leave it vulnerable to that HE damage. 17 pounder taking its shot to the C.I.A.B.G Panther. This was my solution for it, and I did manage to find a penetration there. As the shot hit, you can see the debris fly out, even though you can't actually see the vehicle itself, and that way you know you got a hit. AR-196 coming in, the seaplane from C.I.A.G source. It does have a couple of 20 mils in the wing, so it can be quite decent at strafing. I was playing a 1 versus 1 against Protoss a little while back, and he used them to great effect to strafe my ground forces before I brought in any AA. This time around, got the flak filling early, and it's more than enough to deal with the majority of what Festung's going to bring. Because Festung Dunkerque, they don't have much in the way of aircraft, so we're not going to be seeing a lot of the crazy AA units that the Czechoslovaks can get. For example, the 88s. They also can get the Canadian 94mm guns, which are really, really strong against enemy tanks as well as aircraft. I'm not going to be bringing them in today just because they weren't really necessary. You know, Panzer IV is going to be moving forwards here, taking care of my Cromwell. Panzer IVs very much outclass Cromwells, unfortunately. The best thing that a Cromwell's got going for it is its flanking because of its speed. These are very speedy boys. They got 63 km/h on-road speed and 45 km/h off-road speed. If you compare that to a Panzer IV, it's only got 31 km/h off-road speed. So we're, 14 km/h faster off-road with these Cromwells, so we can get into really nice flanking positions, use light cover to get cheeky shots off out of line of sight, and that was somewhat the plan with utilizing them in the town here to kind of sneak around. But obviously his use of Panzerschrecks so far is limiting how much I can do that. And I can't really use Cromwells on the right hand side here because his Panzer IVs will outrange me and also have much better penetration. So I'm a lot less likely to penetrate him at range than he is me. 17 pounder moves up, actually reveals itself by firing at the Lafley. It's a very interesting little recon car, this. But yeah, we take that out before. Thankfully, C.I.A.G didn't move his Panzer IV immediately, but then starts to get it right tucked up behind this building, which is going to make it almost impossible for my 17 pounder to find the kill. I also ended up losing the Cromwell 5 over here. It got sniped by the C.I.A.G Panther. The thing about Lipen on this left hand side is this is a hill, and it's very difficult to see when you're zoomed out, but when you zoom in you can see that there's clearly elevation here. So if you move up units on this right or left hand side, sorry, units at the back here can actually see it very well, and that can obviously lead to units getting caught out like my Cromwell there. I brought in some of these flamers for the town engagements because, like, as long as I'm not being in these sort of engagements between like the Festungsgrenadier and the converted RAF, like when all goes quiet in the town, it's a good opportunity to try and get close range infantry into the next line of buildings here, and then I can fight building to building with the flamethrower. Panzerschreck was again using the line of sight behind the building to try and stay hidden there, but I didn't really have any cover with other infantry, so having a bit of a hard time so far. I was hoping that Panzerschreck might be able to ambush the Panzer IVs and such. Here I'm going to be retreating my converted RAF before the Festungsgrenadier can surrender them. And now these converted RAF, backed up by the MG42, going to be trying to make a little bit of ground here And so far, things not fantastic for us, but we haven't really lost our flag yet. So we're more or less even. You know, we're holding on to this flag that we need to. We're holding on to this flag that we need to. So overall, things not too bad, but he has put quite a lot of pressure on me early on due to mainly the Panzer IVs, I would say, restricting my use of the Cromwells, and the C.I.A.B.G Panther especially further back, making it difficult for me to flank around the left side of the town in order to take advantage of them as well. So this Cromwell manages to find a nice cheeky shot through the town here onto the Panzer IV, so we managed to take out at least one of those. And starting to clean up the Panzer IVs, especially since he did bring them in earlier on, is like a priority, because he won't have very many of them. I think there's only 2 cards of armor that you're really going to get in the Festung Dunkerque, and it is 1 card of Panzer IVs and 1 card of Stugs. So going into the game knowing this, when I start picking off these Panzers, it's going to make it more difficult for C.I.A.B.G to control those medium armored engagements. 17 pounder though does get absolutely obliterated by the IG-33 back here. This is the massive infantry gun that really does a ton of damage, but oh, this Cromwell being absolute MVP right here, taking out the C.I.A.B.G Panther. Now this is a bit of a mistake on C.I.A.B.G Source's part. He probably shouldn't have really had that driving around in the town, but we managed to find the side shot there into an already damaged C.I.A.G Panther, because that 17 pounder had penetrated it previously, and that was a huge win for me. You got to be really careful in this town with line of sight, because there's so many places where there isn't a building. So for example here, there's like no buildings there, there's no buildings like here, so you do get line of sight through the town in very interesting ways, and utilizing that to your advantage on this map is quite important. And just using the tool by pressing C is the way in which you want to do that. So now I'm coming up with a lot of these FFO Fusiliers. The plan with these is just to spread them out and engage all of his infantry, so then I can pick and choose my engagements with the Cromwells. They're really cheap and expendable. Only 15 points for a 10-man squad. You just YOLO them forwards and get the job done that way. Artillery still coming in, forcing me to move my Cromwells from position. My Geniste going to be doing okay versus the Pioneers, but cheeky little fire position there from C.I.A.B.G. He basically fire positioned the HE bundle grenade short of the Genistis, so I couldn't actually engage him immediately, and that's going to make it so that he has a much more favourable engagement against my squad here. C.I.A.B.G. obviously being a pretty decent player in Steel Division 2, definitely giving me a hard time. But what is that you might see there? Fire position command coming in for the big old 182mm artillery. I believe in the Battlegroup preview I said this was one of the biggest on-map artilleries, but that is by no means the case, because of course the Soviets do have the huge artillery that they can bring on, like 260mm or something, but these are still very good. And that's going to be launching its first round towards the Luftwaffe Flakkampftruppen in that building. The shot will land shortly. There it is, right on target. One thing that was really surprising to me when I was using these for the first time was how accurate they are with radio. You can see my radio here, and the radius or dispersion of this artillery piece is actually not that high, which is really good. Cromwell, unfortunately, going to be going down. Panzer IVs really getting the better of me here. But this is a Cromwell 8. Now, Cromwell 8s are actually a really cool unit. It's another Cromwell, of course, but they have 120mm of frontal armor. So you can see I'm bouncing Panzer IVs, I'm bouncing a Pak-38 on the left here. And whilst we are, you know, going to eventually be penetrated, the fact that this is so resilient against units like this is really cool. Yeah, eventually goes down. I basically just had them in a bad position, and I didn't really have anything to cover myself. But the Recon Cromwell, once again, finding a nice kill onto the Panzer IV. And just as I'm starting to get a foothold in this town, well, another bit of Festung Dunkirken magic occurs as the off-map starts coming in, brutally tearing through my infantry. I'm going to have to back off my vehicles and regroup before pushing in again. I've also got a Firefly in now. This is going to be covering the right road. Does have the 2,000 meter range, so able to stop the Panzer IVs from being so much of an issue at longer ranges. I'm also going to be bringing in one for the left road to deal with this Panzer IV. So a bit of a mistake here on my part. Had the Cromwell coming in with a quick hunt command, and that meant that it stopped to engage the Panzer IV out in the open to its demise. A little bit unfortunate, but now the Firefly is in position. I should be able to force that Panzer IV out of position and continue to get more pressure in the town. We're currently 15 to 11, unfortunately, on the right-hand side. It looks like Taki here has managed to get the better of this flag, and Grimm's managed to get into the town here, so that's giving them an advantage at the moment on the opposing team. But not all is lost just yet, as when we move into the late game, we're going to have an armoured advantage, I would say, and potentially an artillery advantage depending on how our opponents have built their decks. So that's kind of the two things that we need to think about moving forwards in this game. But one thing that they are definitely going to have the advantage of in the late game is infantry. And you could see all the different types of infantry there: the Jagdkampf, the Jagdkommando, the Jagd Pioneers. Very, very nice combination of units there. The Jagdkommando having the HE grenade, the Jagd Pioneer having the flamethrower, and then the Jagdkampf having its dual MG42s. Fortunately, Marder going to be getting the better of my Cromwell that I brought up to support here. I'm still being smashed by off-map in the town in the meantime, and on the left, artillery's trying to deal with Jagd's support weapons. He's been trying to counter-battery my 7.2 inch artillery piece here. You can see all of the craters around the artillery there. But I have now brought in a second. It's going to be chilling in the light cover. But due to that off map, I am forced out of position, and I am briefly losing this flag. And a lot of my tanks and stuff are being picked apart. This is another nice unit, actually. I really like the Cromwell 7 command tank. I think it's really nice. Again, it benefits from having the 120mm of frontal armor, just like the Cromwell 8. So it's very resilient at range. And usually, like for example in this case where I'm accompanying a Firefly at the 2,000 meter range, it's going to make this like very difficult to kill. The Firefly is actually easier to kill at range than the Cromwell is, so the leadership will remain probably longer than the Fireflies, which is a good thing, because you want to keep your leaders alive so you can use them with replacement tanks and replacement infantry and so on as the game continues. So a bunch of expendable infantry coming in once again, all of these FFO Fusiliers. My artillery going to be falling onto his infantry here. The Marine Infantry and the Festungsgrenadier going to be smashed by my big old artillery there. And since I'm covering the roads now with the Fireflies, I actually decide to go pretty deep with the FFO Fusiliers. Fortunate that the AT gun on the left there actually missed its shot, because as you can see I was trying to kill it already with my artillery. But obviously hadn't been pinned down completely just yet. Got all of these FFO now unloading, going to be making their attack moves forwards. Then I'm going to be able to get the MG42 on target. We can maybe get the Cromwells to move up if I want. But even these, now we've moved into the late game, or well, we're just about to move into Phase C. The Jagdkampf that we come up against, they have Panzerschrecks as well. So they're like the Panzergrens with Panzerschrecks from the 116th. And it's a really brutal combination. Being able to control ranged infantry engagements with double MG42 whilst also being able to stop tanks closing on them at close range is very, very tough to deal with. Off-map smashing me once again. Off-map, again, a staple of the Festung Dunkerque. But my Firefly showing its superiority, popping the Panzer IV down the road, utilizing its great range. Panzer IV not really even be able to fire back. He moved it on the road there to support against the FFO Fusiliers. A little bit of friendly fire coming in from one of my artillery pieces doesn't really help the matter for me. But at least we're still holding on to this flag, and like I always felt like I was somewhat making progress here by whittling down his infantry and his support weapons. So like every time I'm killing like an IG or a pack, or I'm like killing a few of his infantry squads but keeping my own alive, like that's good. And also my 17 pounders, like between the Firefly and the 17 pounder AT gun, are starting to pick off the Panzer IVs, and without the Panzer IV support, things can get quite difficult for C.I.A.B.G to have to rely on Stugs, which can be flanked and killed much easier by Cromwells. So he does have to be a little bit careful as we move through the game. But Marine Infantry coming in here and going to be taking this flag. So they're currently up to a 1610, which is technically a double tick for our opponents. Not ideal. So what I'm going to want to do is try and make ground as quickly as possible. And you can see I'm trying to put pressure onto this flag by arting all of the units that are in these buildings. Like I've just destroyed these buildings entirely. And now I'm going to be targeting the IG-33 to get rid of that as it kills one of my flamer squads. But yeah, if I can contest this flag, I can contest this flag maybe, then it allows my team a little bit of a chance to recover. But we are obviously still in a pretty bad spot overall. Firefly is getting some shots there onto the IG, but I did lose line of sight. My Cromwell going to get caught by the off-map there, unfortunately. But I haven't decided to move any of these up yet. You can see that I'm being like very conservative with my infantry, somewhat on purpose. Like there were moments in this game where I'm obviously just forgetting to move forwards my infantry, but there were also times where I'm waiting for the off-map to come down so that I can then push after the off-map's gone with completely refreshed squads, rather than like half-pinned or half-damaged squads like these FFO Fusiliers are. He's even got the Kriegsmarine Kützen Polizei, which have really cool uniforms. Briefly saw them. Artillery now coming in for my infantry here. He is starting to slowly break down my infantry. As I mentioned before, I really don't have a lot of close-range infantry compared to him in this game, because he's got the Jagd Commandos, he's got the Jagd Pioneers, and so eventually I'm going to end up running out of these flamer infantry to contest the close ranges. So that's why I'm going to be committing quite a lot to pushing through this town. I've opted to bring up a couple of these Stuarts. These are pretty cheap, 30 points a pop. I've got a couple of Cromwells, and then a bunch of more converted gunners. So Cromwell's obviously 50 points a piece. The M5A1's going to be like 30 points a piece. That's 160 points of tanks, and then I had like an extra tick after that, so all the converted gunners coming in as well. And since I now have this leader back here, I'm not even gonna try and pronounce that name. We are going to be able to get the extra leadership that I need to make my infantry more valuable. But having the M5A1s already up here whilst the converted gunners move forwards would have been a good idea, for sure. Marder 3 still causing me problems on the right hand side, so what I'm going to be doing is investing in the Cromwell 7, the Churchill 4 and the M5A1 with my next ticker points. And they're going to be trying to solidify the position on this road through the tree line here. And yeah, this is pretty much what the division comes down to. It's like cheap infantry with medium tank deployment. So a lot of Cromwell 5s, a lot of just Cromwells in general. They were super speedy, maneuverable, and can play around these sorts of engagements. Flag filling there actually takes out the Marder, because the Marder's quite lightly armoured, not able to really shoot fast enough. Flag filling quad 20 just wipes it out. Vestung's Grenadier coming forwards to engage that as well are going to be taking a ton of damage. So flag filling going to be finding a couple kills there, even though it is in a bit of a bad spot as the infantry start to converge on it. And we are, of course, still sitting on the 17-9, so only 3 minutes 30 seconds until the enemy win. I've got now 4 of these 182mm artillery pieces on the map, and you're going to be seeing me just sequentially fire forwards with all of this artillery, clean out any infantry that are in my way. So for example, this like C.I.A.B.G, going to be targeting that. We're going to be targeting the Grens, we're going to be targeting this area so that I can capture the flag. Just trying to put on as much pressure as I can, but it really doesn't help when both my Cromwell and Stuart get killed by a Panzerschreck on this right hand side. So going to be bringing in the Humber, going to be bringing in the bojowa, and it was at this point that I did remember that I do have some more close range infantry, just not that many in the recon tab. The bojowa, they have Molotovs, so relatively decent at close range. Still not, you know, abundant enough really to make a big difference here, but still going to be useful for finding and potentially helping clear out the Panzerschrecks in the heavy cover. Now the Cromwell's really coming into their own, as we have got them in abundance in the town, covering and clearing out infantry. I did leave my M5A1s back here. This is a big mistake actually on my part, because if I'd had both of these Stuarts with my forces here, like the extra veterancy would have made my converted gunners be way more resilient, and that would have been extremely helpful in these infantry engagements, whilst my Cromwells try and get the job done. DO-217 coming in with the big bombs there. That was the 2 1,000-kilogram bombs you just saw explode, and along with my poor Cromwell. So the Humber there getting a little bit too close to the Panzerschreck before it gets found. So it does get taken out. Now Firefly going to be trying to get rid of another of the Marders as my bojowa come up. But 1 minute left on the clock. I am going to be capturing this flag briefly, but now the off map going to be continuing. And with Vestung, well, he's still got plenty of off map to go. If it's anything like my deck, I have 5 off map vehicles with 3 strikes each. So that can be most of the game that you're being off mapped. He did kind of give me a little bit of a chance to move up, like a little bit of a breather. But now the off map's going to start coming back in again. You can see this town has been absolutely demolished by all of this artillery fire. The artillery's still coming in as well. My Cromwell here, trying to get the better of all these C.I.A.B.G. Looking for a nice play before the end of the game. We actually bring it back to 16-10. Going to find the surrender onto C.I.A.B.G. Pinning down the Vestung's Grenadier. Find the second surrender onto the C.I.A.B.G. Looking for the Vestung's surrender as well. Managed to surrender the Lafley. Now going to be pulling off into cover. Pack 40 thankfully missing. A nice little play by the Cromwell there, breaks through at the end, but unfortunately it's too late. 29 minutes 11 seconds. It is going to be a minor defeat. And yeah, I thought this was a fun, short but sweet look at how the Czechoslovak division plays. It is a fun one in my opinion. I really do like messing around with Cromwells. The speed on them just makes them so fun to use in medium range engagements, and particularly around towns, in light cover, that kind of thing. The trouble that you do have is you kind of don't have the infantry to support that kind of play. So you can see I was very restricted by the Panzerschrecks, and therefore I couldn't get on top of the Panzer IVs, which were then also causing me problems, and it was kind of just like a sequence of events that really made it difficult for me to play around. Of course, as soon as I get the 17 pounders and the Fireflies in, that's okay, but I had them later on. Maybe having the Fireflies earlier might be an idea for this deck, just to kind of open up the field for the Cromwells earlier on. I did have 88s I probably could have used earlier on. I also could have, of course, brought in the Canadian 94mm like anti-air, which is also good as anti-tank. The trouble with those units is that I didn't have any aircraft to really shoot at until that one bomber at the end. So it's almost a waste to have a dual purpose that's only doing one thing, rather than just spending less points on an AT gun, for example. So that was the logic there. But yeah, an interesting game, and hopefully you guys enjoyed a quick look at the Czechoslovak unit here. This Cromwell, the Recon Cromwell, doing a fantastic job taking out 2 Panzer IVs and the Jagdpanther. What an absolute hero. Really big fan of these big artillery pieces. They hit very hard indeed and have fantastic suppression. So definitely recommend those. Nice sort of small dispersion as well. Really just broke down and killed a lot of models in the infantry that allowed my Cromwells to clean up, and all of the infantry, like the converted gunners, that was following up as well. As you can see, that Jagdpanther was causing me a little bit of problems early on, but otherwise we didn't let it get too many kills, and then it just comes down to multiple off maps smashing me throughout the game and preventing me from making too much progress. That one Jagdkampf with its Panzerschreck getting the better of a few of my tanks there. That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.